We're in part 3 of lesson 1.2. Our problem is evaluating algebraic expressions. Again, algebraic expressions meaning I have operations and variables. And evaluating means I'm literally going to plug in what I know. Okay? So, let's do that. What is the value of the expression for x equals 5 and y equals 2? So, if I have the problem x squared plus x minus 12 divided by y squared, the very first thing I'm going to do is realize, hey, I know what x is. I know what y is. So I'm going to plug in 5 for x. I'm going to plug in 2 for y. So that's the very first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to substitute. That is the very first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to substitute. And then it comes down to what we were just doing in part 2, was using PEMDAS. PEMDAS tells us that, hey, what do we need to take care of first? Exponents. We need to simplify our powers. So 5 squared is 25 and 2 squared is 4. Then what's next in the PEMDAS world? Division. Division is next. So I'm going to have to divide. And what's 12 divided by 4? 3. Then if I look at this, we can add and subtract going left to right, and our answer is 27. Pretty cool, huh? So pretty much the only difference from part 2 to now is I know what my variables mean, so I'm going to plug them in and solve. So let's look at our next one. We have the quantity of x, y squared. So the very first thing we need to do is what? Good, I'm hoping you guys all said that we need to plug in, we need to substitute the 5 and the 2, and they're hugging. The x and the y are touching each other. They are hugging. What operation is that? Multiplication. You'd be amazed by how many students I have that will tell me that that is addition or subtraction. No, if there was, then there'd be another symbol in there. It's not. If they're hugging each other, they're multiplication. So we have 5 times 2 squared. So what's the very first thing we need to do? Well, in PEMDAS land, we know that we have to do parentheses. Good. So we get 10 squared. And what's 10 squared? 100. And that is the power, that is the exponents of it all. Okay? So this is the really cool part, because now I want you to go ahead and try this one out. It says to evaluate A for 3 and B for 4. So go ahead and pause the video and work this problem out. Okay, assuming you pause the video and work this problem out, hopefully you would have realized that you need to plug in 4 for B and 3 for A, and then use PEMDAS in order to solve. So multiplication and the exponents went ahead and did that in the same step. So we got 12 minus 9, which equals 3. Hopefully you came up with 3 as your response. And then the next one I want you to try out is 2b squared minus 7a. So again, go ahead and pause the video and work this problem out. Assuming you have already paused the video and you worked this problem out, let's check our work. Hopefully you plugged in 4 for B and again 3 for A, and then you solved. You did your exponents first, hopefully. 4 squared is 16. Then what did you end up doing? Hopefully you said to multiply, because you would come up with 32 minus 21. And then what did you have to do? You had to subtract. So we got 11. Good. Okay. Next up is evaluating real-world expressions. So real-world expressions we're going to be doing right now. This is the cool part. This is where, well, how do we use algebra all the time in life? Well, let's see here. Our first expression is, let's say, what is an expression for spending money you have left after depositing 2/5 of your wages into savings. Okay, so the first thing it wants us to do is, okay, so then it says to evaluate for weekly wages 40, 50, 75, and 100. So, excuse me. So I got a couple of things that we need to do here. We need to first write an expression, an algebraic expression, using what we know. Well, what we know is that savings equals 2/5 of wages. Okay? And we have various weeks of wages. And we want to write an expression of spending money, and we also want to figure out the amount of spending money for various weekly wages. So, let's relate. Spending money equals wages minus our savings. And isn't our savings 2/5 of our wages? And what does of mean? Good, it means a multiplication. So we have 2/5 times our wages. And we're actually going to take that away from our wages so that we can actually see what is left. Notice how it defines W. It says W is your wages. You got to put that in your homework. If you don't put that in your homework, I'm not going to know what your variable stands for. Okay, so our algebraic expression is W minus 2/5 times W. Now here's my question. Are we done? Did we answer all of our questions? If you said yes, you need to go back to your problem. And so let's go ahead and do that, because a lot of us say, well, I've got my algebraic expression. Okay, well, that's cool. But then what does it say? It says to evaluate for the weekly wages. So I actually went ahead and drew a table. Had our algebraic expression that we came up with, put down our wages that it told us. It told us 4, 50, 75, 100. And then I plugged them in. 40 minus 2/5 times 40 is going to give me $24. So that means after figuring out what my savings was, I can figure out how much money I have left to spend, and that's going to be $24. Same thing with 50. I plugged it in for W, because aren't these our wages? It doesn't W mean wages? Yeah. So I went ahead and plugged in this for W and came up with 30. Same thing works for 75, came up with 45. Same thing for 100, plugged it in, came up with 60. Okay, so now it's your turn. Let's say we are going to, we have a shipping cost of an online order at an online, shipping cost at an online store is 1/10 the cost of items you ordered. What is an expression for the total cost? This is the big thing. This is the total cost of a given order. What are the total costs for the orders? 43, 79, 95, and 103. So this is something that you got to really think about. I want the total cost. Okay, well, I know that the shipping cost is 1/10 of the cost. So what am I going to do with the 1/10 and the cost? Good, I'm going to multiply it. Okay, so here's my question. Does shipping get added to our total or subtracted from our total? Good, it gets added to our total. So that's something that we need to realize too. We need to realize that C, this could be X, could be whatever, but C is easier since we're doing with cost. C equals cost of items. And then if I have 1/10 of C, that's 1/10 times C, and add that to my cost, I'm going to come up with my total cost. And I could, I went ahead and plugged in those numbers, so I hope you guys did as well. Plug in those numbers and come up with your total cost. If I would have had, $43 of items, I would have actually paid $47.30 because I would have taken 1/10 of 43, which is 4.3, and added it to $43. Same thing with the 79 $85, and $103. It's going to cost me $86.90 in order for it to ship. It's going to cost me $104.50 in order for 90 items shipped. It's going to cost me $113.30 for 103 items. It's going to be my total cost. That includes shipping and the items. Is there any questions over this? If there is, then you need to raise your hand or come see me at some point. Okay? I hope you guys have a good day.